Good afternoon to everybody. I think I need something to, have a control over the presentation. Okay, thank you. Because if you don't understand, you cannot measure. If you don't measure, you cannot control. If you cannot control, you end up to be pointless. So, thank you for coming again. This is my second time in a day. I can understand that it may be a little bit too much, but I'll try my best in order to, decorate this presentation. This time it will be more interesting, I hope, because I'm going to talk about the changing regulatory environment and the prospects of the Sharia-compliant finance. Well, this is what it looks like, the international regulatory framework on the financial markets. Of course, I could add IFFS and IOFI into this chart as well in order, to make it even more complicated. But I think it's already enough. Poor bankers. This is what you are, exposed to. A net, thanks God, not, and a network of, other things, but network of regulators. Well, what is the aim? What we built such a complicated and complex network? Oops, sorry. Well, after the crisis, of course, when especially Lehman collapsed, and I should say that Durmuş Bey and myself, we were there at that time in Washington, D.C. We were, watching the television, the meetings, and with a serious fear. And I remember during one of the G20 meetings, in the middle of the meeting, it was a ministerial meeting, by the way, the doors opened and George W. Bush appeared in the room. So it was for the first time, I guess, ever, that a president of the United States participated in a meeting at the IMF and a ministerial level. So it shows the seriousness of the problem. Well, but we learned a lot. And since the breakup of the crisis, we have been busy to develop a framework in which we were trying to, address some of the concerns. What are they? Well, of course, first of all, we discovered that we were not able to manage and measure the risk at all prior to this new framework, because what we were concentrated was basically the micro risks, the risks attributed to the individual specific financial institutions. It seems at least that we had forgotten about the systemic aspect of the risk. And since the crisis, a lot has been done in terms of developing macroprudential regulatory framework, and of course to mitigate the procyclical characteristics of the existing regulatory framework. A second issue, we discovered that the securitization, in addition to all of its virtues, may be a very dangerous thing. And I guess there is a lesson to be learned by us as well. Because when we are talking about Islamic finance, it has a lot to do with the securitization for the time being. So securitization, and especially financial products, financial instruments we neglected. We didn't think about it. There are, a couple of them. Those unregulated financial products constituted a huge risk to the financial service industry and rest of the economy as well. Of course, we had a better understanding of what central clearing is important and what role can be played by central counterparties. Those are really issues that we, from the angle of the Islamic finance as well, should take into consideration. Also, credit rating agencies was another issue. And also, the new regulatory framework aims at incorporating any kind of financial activity, including shadow banking. And here again, I can maybe draw parallel lines between the conventional and Islamic finance. Because so far, of course, we have an advantage, the advantage of backwardness. It may seem weird, but since we are backwarded, since we are less developed, we had this advantage. They went too far, the other guys, the conventional guys. They went too far, so they end up with those problems. But we shouldn't think that we are completely immune against those issues either. And also a very, very important, maybe the most important element, the increased international coordination. And Minister Şimşek has already mentioned that now we started to exchange information between countries, between regulatory institutions, between SROs, between tax authorities. And this is something good because otherwise, again, as I said, regulatory arbitrage or other kind of arbitrage can kick in and we risk to have serious consequences. And also, another very important and positive aspect of the post-crisis new framework is that we are putting now more emphasis on transparency, accountability, independence, coordination, and effectiveness as far as financial institutions are concerned. So, when it comes to the market outlook, well, this is, a horrible picture. When I look the amount of of course it is notional amount, but still an amount that is traded OTC. I cannot dare to pronounce the figure, but you can see it. Trillions, hundreds of trillions of US dollars. And what is worst, since the beginning of the crisis, one normally would expect it to come down, right? It is just the opposite. Compared to 2007, it is 40% above. So we keep pushing OTC derivatives. Thanks God, a huge part of it is interest derivatives, which is nothing to do with the Islamic financial institutions. But yet, if anything, we learned out of the last crisis, there is a contagion risk between conventional and Islamic financial institutions. So we should be warned, we should be very cautious, and we should think about it. So good news is that together with capital markets regulatory authorities, chaired, represented under the umbrella of IOSCO, and exchanges, we are really working very hard, at least in order to make sure that those OTC derivatives, at least, will be cleared centrally. So Turkish Clearing House Takas Bank is, a good example for that. we hope that within a couple of years, Turkish clearinghouse will be transferred into a central counterparty in all segments of the capital markets, including OTC derivatives. Another issue which is, I think, important for us as well, that is exchange-traded funds. This, again, has been mentioned previously by the Minister Şimşek that I think as financial institutions, Islamic financial institutions, we should think more about exchanges. We are complaining that we cannot carry on musharaka transactions. Exchanges are right places to do it. And they are open, they are transparent, they are regulated, they are standardized. So if we can bring those two, domains together and establish a partnership or a continuous flow of business model between Islamic financial institutions and exchanges, I guess we can have a serious business opportunity laying over there. Another serious issue, another warnings, is fragmentation of the markets. I mentioned about, exchanges, but there are threats waiting for exchanges as well. For the sake of competition, but blind competition, believe me, especially in Europe and US, they pushed so far that they ended with fragmented market structure. So there is no such a thing that unified or consolidated marketplace. There are separate, platforms, venues, some called, ATF, MTF, alphabet soup, and strange but true. Number one equity trading platform in Europe is no longer an exchange. This is BATS KAYEX Europe. This is an alternative trading platform or facility. So this is again another aspect of the post-crisis era, but a serious issue and concern. To conclude, I would like to touch upon very briefly on the global outlook of Islamic finance. We are really proud that our industry has grown by, almost 20%, 1/5, since the beginning of the decade. But on the other hand, this is the right-hand side. When you look at the left-hand side, this one, you could see that we are only 1/300. 1/300. So still very teeny. So on the one hand, you can say that, well, this is half full, huge opportunity for further development, but we should accept and admit and understand and acknowledge that we are still representing a very, very small part of the global financial sector. And of course, again, the concentration in internal or in internal distribution or composition of Islamic financial assets, another issue. It is still bank dominated, and we have to change it, at least differentiate it. And the growth is really very promising for Islamic banking assets. And again, in terms of the geographical distribution, it seems that we should do better. This is again to give you a brief outlook about the Islamic capital markets instruments. Well, last, I put this especially to be able to make a comparison. This is, one of the most reliable, most trustful, most, respected segments of the conventional financial service industry. Mortgage-based, mortgage-backed securities. This was, a very important innovation. At least people were thinking like this. But you can see the huge volatility between good times and bad times. In bad times, there is irrational exuberance. In bad times, there is total market collapse. Compared to, their Islamic sister, I should say, maybe, sukuk market, very, very much similar to the mortgage-based securities. This is not the case. In spite of the crisis, we had the same crisis. We were hit in a similar way, but yet you don't have. So this is maybe a good answer to those who were thinking still that sukuk and conventional, interest-bearing instruments are nothing but the same thing. So I would like to stop here, and if there are further questions, especially concerning Turkey and Istanbul, I would be very, very happy to answer. Thank you very much.